In this lesson, we're going to learn how to multiply with fractions. We're going to start with a whole number times a fraction. 24 times 1/6. I've drawn 24 objects. When multiplying with fractions, I need to look at my denominator. The denominator tells me how many groups things are broken into. So if I have 24 circles and I want to create 6 groups, broken them up into 6 groups, so group 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So I now have 24 objects. They're in 6 different groups. And the numerator tells me how many objects are in one group. So in this one group, there are 4 objects. So 24 times 1/6 is equal to 4. To show that mathematically, 24 times 1/6, I need 24 to be a fraction. And in order to make a whole number a fraction, I'm going to put a 1 underneath it, because I know 24 divided by 1 is still equal to the whole number 24. Now, we've been using fraction times fraction this whole time. So to do fraction times fraction, I'm just going to multiply across. 24 times 1 is 24. 1 times 6 is 6. And this is an improper fraction. So 24 divided by 6 is 4, which is what I got using my model. Our next example is 12 times 3/4. So to model it, I can start by drawing 12 objects. And then I'm going to look at the denominator. The denominator says there needs to be 4 groups. So I need to figure out a way that I can split this into 4 groups. So if I split them here, that makes 2 groups. And if I split them here, that makes group 1, 2, 3, group 4. Now I'm going to look at my numerator. In the last problem, the numerator was 1. They only wanted me to look at one group. This time, the numerator is 3. So they want me to count how many objects are in 3 groups. So group 1 had 3 objects. Group 2 is going to make a total of 6 objects. And if I count my third group, I end up shading 9 objects. So 12 times 3/4 is equal to 9. Once again, to show this mathematically, in order to write a whole number as a fraction, I put a 1 underneath the whole number. 12 divided by 1 is still equal to 12. Now I can multiply across. 12 times 3 is 36. 1 times 4 is 4. Since this is improper, I would divide, and 4 will go into 36 an even 9 times. In this example, we're going to find 15 times 2/3. I can start by drawing 15 objects. My 15 objects are there. My denominator wants me to make 3 groups. So this will be group 1, group 2, and this right here will be group 3. The numerator tells me how many groups do I want to look at. So I want to look at 2 out of the 3 groups. So group 1 had 5 objects. And if I count the second group, I get a total of 10 objects. So 15 times 2/3 is equal to 10. And to solve it mathematically, I know that 15 as a fraction So it would be 15 over 1. 15 times 2 is 30. 1 times 3 is 3. Since this is improper, when I divide 30 by 3, 3 will go into 3 once, and 3 will go into 0 0 times, so 10 is still the answer. Now, if you notice, every multiplication problem I've done, my answer has gotten smaller because I am multiplying by a fraction. If 15 times 1 equals 15, when I multiply by something less than 1, my answer is going to get smaller than 15. For our last few examples, we're going to look at just a fraction times a fraction. We have been using this to help us add and subtract, so we've been multiplying fractions all along. And something that's nice is when multiplying fractions, I do not have to have the same denominator. I can just multiply across. 2 times 1 is 2. 9 times 2 is 18. The only step that I still have to make sure I take is check to see that my answer is in the simplest form. So if I use the slide method, 2 and 18 are both even numbers. They can both be divided by 2. 2 divided by 2 is 1. 18 divided by 2 is 9. And so the simplest form would be 1/9. So 2/9 times a half is equal to 1/9. And once again, I should notice that my answer is getting smaller because I multiplied by a half, and a half is less than 1. Let's look at our next two examples. 3/7 times 2/3. So once again, I do not have to have the same denominator. I just go ahead and multiply across like always. 3 times 2 is 6. 7 times 3 is 21. My only step is to check that it is in the simplest form. I know that 6 can be made by 1 times 6 or 2 times 3. 21 can be 1 times 21 or 3 times 7, so both of these numbers can be divided by 3. 6 divided by 3 is 2. 21 divided by 3 is 7. And 2 and 7 are both prime, so my final answer for 3/7 times 2/3 would be 2/7. Down here we'll try our last example. We'll go ahead and multiply across. 1 times 5 is 5. 5 times 6 is 30. And I'm going to do the slide to make sure I'm in the simplest form. 5 and 30 can both be divided by 5. 5 divided by 5 is 1. 30 divided by 5 is 6. And since there's a 1, that means I'm done. So my final answer would be 1/6. Now try these practice problems. Remember that when you have a whole number, to turn it into a fraction, you need to put a 1 under it as the denominator. Also, remember that the important parts are the denominator, 3, tells me the number of groups to split the 6 objects into. The numerator tells me the number of groups to look at or to count. You can use the mathematical strategy or you can draw objects to help you solve these problems. Always check to see that your answer is in the simplest form.